our review for January 10th. The intention going into the session was a massive EV loss today, so not a good day. Did not feel very good. Felt fine going in, and had intention to be a little bit more precise in my big blind play. Keep that range nice and tight and snug. The other intention was to, in game, make sure that range decisions I was making were realistic. So I'm not including hands that likely haven't made it to a particular node. And I think I probably did that okay. I don't know whether I would say that I did it well, but I at least had it in mind a number of times. I think I may have over overplayed out a position, thinking that my range had strengthened enough that I could bet small, but bet nonetheless. Most of the time, I'm the pre-flop raiser because I'm not cold calling three bets as often as one would think or one might. But in the big blind, I am going to be calling a lot more. So it's in those spots that I'm leading into a polarized range and trying to be aware of that fact. So I'm putting out smaller bets on turns and rivers that I think have benefited me because of checkbacks from the PFR raising imposition hand. So anyway, we'll see a number of those and we can determine whether those were good decisions or not. I'm guessing there was some mammoth decision I made that I might as well just look at what it is right now. Let's go over there. It is a hand that is EV loss. Oddly not showing up, so not quite sure what that was referring to. Do I have some sort of filter on? No. Sort of not. Okay, well, not completely sure why. Maybe just because we don't know. We don't even have a lot of mistakes. Very odd. Anyway, so whatever that average EV loss is telling us, I'm not sure why. Maybe that's some sort of GTO wizard mistake. Possibly. Usually that would be like one big, huge mammoth mistake, but doesn't seem to be any. Anyway, we'll go through the review. I'm going to review post-flop only. I don't think there's any value in looking at those pre-flop raises that folds. It just takes up time. And then for the next few sessions, I'll keep like flop C bets that have folds just because it's worth discussing and making sure that I'm hitting those flops properly. But there may come a point where I sort of remove some of those, which allows us to kind of spend a bit more time on the more interesting hands, I guess. But we'll keep it in here. The intention of the reviews, as always, is to find common mistakes that I'm making that we can label as kind of a leak, or not even kind of, but a leak that is helping us lose money. This session I lost about 2/3 of a buy-in playing NL10 Zoom, so about $7 in the greater scheme of things. Zero impact on life, but the intention here is not to necessarily win big money. The intention is to get a positive win rate over the long term, obviously. And it's not clear to me why I continue to post losing sessions. I would say out of the last 30 days, I've probably lost 20 to 25 of those sessions, and I don't know why. So a running theme. I would say the other thing about today that became somewhat frustrating is I just was not hitting flops. I did not really get anywhere. Some of my value hands got beaten. Possibly didn't bet them well enough to create some sort of form of protection. Possibly not value betting enough. As usual, when the session feels like it's kind of getting away from me, I can tend to get a little cautious and turtly. So there will probably be some spots where I miss some bets that would increase that win rate. And then there's possibly some calls that I made that will decrease it because they're a little too loose, potentially. I don't think there are as many of those. Anyway, let's get into the hands and see what we see. So a queen jack open on the cutoff, which is pretty standard. We flop middle pair, no heart blockers. That's another note that my buddy Burge made, was that I just shouldn't worry too much about the blockers on the flop. So I will probably habitually talk about those, but I'm going to start trying to catch myself and exclude them from my analysis on flops, and only start bringing them in on turns, and definitely consider on rivers, particularly when bluffing rivers. So we got a cold call, so the range is capped with no kings, likely no jacks, and we probably share flushes, flush draws, we share king, queen, 10, we share all these various sort of interacting hands here. So I would say range wise, we're probably running kind of 50-50. I don't think either one of us has any sort of advantage in terms of our value, but they will have, I have no stats on this person, so I don't know how wide they defend their big blind, but they're going to have a lot more trash. So I think we can put a little bit of a bet out here because of that trash is going to weigh their range down a bit. And we can get some value from lesser hands. Granted, we will also potentially have kings calling as well. But let's just put a bet in, because overall I think this board is advantageous to us. So we put in a 1/3 bet, which is my standard size with a flush draw. Lots of flush draws in their hand that are going to pay off some value, and when I do have kings, and I think it's fine for jacks as well, and we get a fold. Sixes open probably, yep, and then defended. Pretty whiffy board. Usually I'm checking a lot of aces in this spot, so I think sixes just want to try and get to showdown. I don't see a lot of benefit in betting. And they just let out. So we're going to just let it go because they can lead with lots of aces. And even though we're second pair, we don't have any, any run out flushes. There's run out backdoor straights. We are potentially going to see more action on the turn. I guess, I could peel one. I could potentially defend one bet here. But the fact that they lead out, and they're not a terrible range. It's not like this guy's 60 VPIP or something weird. This is over 230 hands. They've got, fairly reasonable stats, maybe a little bit looser than usual. Kind of odd. Like, that's a weird board to lead out on. But they did. And so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt as being a little bit stronger. It could be like a exploit that they have decided they're playing, where ace high boards they lead, and then anything under the ace high, like even kings or jacks, or people could potentially be folding those. I would never fold those, but sixes I think probably can be folded. Of course, the inverse is that the sixes do somewhat interact with this particular board a little bit. So it could probably be defended, but I decided to fold. Let's just fix this HUD. And then our next hand is tens. So we should 3-bet here with a button open, which we do. So this was another note I received from Burge, is my sizing is too small. I did make an intentional note to myself to play that size better, and then subsequently neglected to do it for most of the hand or most of the session. So this should be more like a 15. I'm noticing when it rolls are reversed and somebody is sizing that big, it's very hard to defend and does not feel particularly awesome. So I should pick that up and make that a part of my game plan better. And the intention was to do that, and now a little bit auto clicky here, and not proud of that part. So then we kind of get I don't know what you would call this, a choppy board, sort of in the middle of our range. We're out of position. If I was in position, I would probably bet it, especially with the 10, or not maybe especially with the 10s, but with the 10s, anything that's kind of around the queen 9. But it is a rainbow board, so their range is not going to be able to sustain a lot of significant betting for value, and the hand's too good to be using as some sort of bluff. So I think we just check here. We get a check to them, or they check as well. 7 comes, and then I made the in-game decision that the 7 was not great for our range. 10-8, which we block, is there, but probably bet on the flop. Checked to 2, so likely not in range now. And I did mention blocks, but we are on the turn, so I think we can start rolling that idea in there. But let's put that at the end of our decision list. Let's think of all the other factors before we talk about blockers. I don't think I raise 7s, and 7s certainly check on the flop. 9-7, I'm unlikely to raise. 9-7 could be called. Unlikely to bet the flop. I don't know what other hands they would have that we aren't already beating. So, yeah, I think I made a decision at this point to check again, just because I think the 10s are good, strong value, or not good, strong value, medium value. And we do have a bit of a gut shot, and I don't think we're folding anything better, but we might be getting calls from worse. So maybe like a 9x, maybe a medium pocket pairs would call, but lots of queens are going to call, and some of those queens would not necessarily bet the flop. So I think the decision here was not to bet, which is what I did. They do lead out, and in this case, I don't remember what I did. I feel like I probably called, and the main factor for calling was that we have a second pair. We still have some outs on to come. A 10 probably doesn't help us that much, but would beat any queens that they didn't bet on the flop. And we could still hit a straight, and we may still have some showdown value. The bet's small. I don't think at this point there's any value in turning the hand into a bluff to try and get queens to fold, some sort of queen. But I could be mistaken there. Yeah, so I think I just call, which I did, and then the ace comes on the river. Ace is generally going to be good for me, but they will have lots of aces in their range as well, so I think this is just a pure check, and that they check as well, so any queens they had, which is what they had, king, queen. Good check protection there on the flop from this guy, and they get an extra bet from me for that. A bigger bet, turn bet. I don't know how many. I'm still calling the flop, and I'm probably still calling the turn. So maybe they actually lost a bet versus this particular portion of my range. I don't know whether there's any value in using 10s as a bluff here. They bet, we called. turn, river. I think we're just pure checking, and then they check to us. Yeah, I think I feel pretty good about that hand, but I think it's worth actually going to take a look at it, just in case I'm wrong in the analysis. And I wonder why that thing, because this is like a really good session. I don't think anything's excluded. There's no filters on. Yeah, I'm not sure. Tens. So that would be this hand. Everything looks fine. Check the flop. Check call the turn. Check the river. Yeah. So well played, says GTO Wizard. Jack 8 versus the small blind. This could certainly be a raise, especially with a min raise from them. Just elected to call. Would love to start using some of these Queen X, Jack X suited hands to raise, and unsuited version, connected unsuiteds. Get a double gutter and backdoor flush draw. Somewhat reasonable board for us. They bet now we could use this as a raise, but elected to call. So that would be a spot where I should probably look to do some raising, especially with a 5 gutter and a 9, well, 9-10 we'd have to get to. And then nothing comes here. They bet 3/4 pot and we just fold. I'm gonna flag this as a look. We'll just look at it while we're here. So what was that? Jack 6, Jack 8. The Jack 8 on this one. Check call. Bet 50 fold. Okay. Not one of the bluffs. Bet. I guess all the bluffs will probably be concentrated around probably a lot of ace diamonds, 9 diamonds. Well, the ace diamonds on the board? No. Why is the ace diamond not showing up? Oh, they bet the flop maybe? Check raise the flop? Raise the turn? Raised pre-likely? Interestingly, why? Yeah, they must have bet the flop. They must have raised the flop. All the diamonds are raising the flop, it looks like. Yeah. Okay. It's good to know. So our hand here on the flop also has a mix between calls and raises. So note that is a good hand to use, as is the queen. And then once we get to the turn, we are now not raising. We're calling. Wait, no, we're not. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the right thing. Here. I'm a little out of it today. I have a bit of a headache, so sorry if I'm a little slow. Jack 8 of clubs, right? Yes. Jack 8 of clubs. Yeah, no raises. Oh yeah, raise. Tiny bit of raise. Jack 8. That one right there, 89. No, actually one tiny pip down from a raise. Almost even. So could potentially be used as a raise, but doesn't have to be. So we'll give ourselves credit as an okay hand. But worth noting that that's the spots that we want to try and use as raises. Big open, defend from the big blind. So we have a gut shot and backdoor flush. This is a strong board for the big blind. Should expect some raises to small bets. Decided a big bet and mix it up a little bit with the backdoors and the gut shot. And ultimately, it's a bit ragged of a board anyways. If it was more connected, I might be a little less likely to bet here. But shows a bigger size and got raised. So it doesn't matter. And have no stats. And just have to imagine that we are beat by bigger pairs, by all kinds of sets and all kinds of things. Probably not nines, but maybe threes and fours. 3-4, 5-6 is the best we can hope for there. That's raising, and lots of overs that we're losing to anyways. So ace kings, ace jacks, ace queens, like all of that kind of stuff could potentially raise here, like any of the backdoor flush versions of those. I guess the only thing that could raise it as a bluff that we beat would be king X or queen X, maybe. Say jack 10, maybe. But while ace kings and ace queens likely aren't there, they probably 3-bet. So anyway, it was a big enough raise, especially a somewhat polar bet, that I just decided to fold. No, I didn't. I decided to call. So this I don't think is a particularly good call. This would be a spot where I lost, I don't know, 13% or 15 big blinds. Because what are we doing on the turn? If we hit our 2, then of course we're smashing. If we hit a flush draw and they pot it again, we're basically hitting SPR of under 1. We're already calling here. We built the pot close to 50 big blinds. So we're rapidly approaching SPR 1, which is not fun, especially if an ace comes. Not awesome. So, yeah, I don't think I like this. And actually, why don't we just look before I judge myself? Let's just see what the solver says. Solver says... solver says... Oh, we're in the wrong window. What? So sorry. 10. 10, 10. Ace 5. This is going to be this one. You'll see that the king will come and we just fold once they continue to bet there. So actually the solver does want us to call even against a 100% raise to a B75. It's wicked. I love that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I guess check mark, but kind of sucking having to. I know the solvers love to call gut shots, and I don't know. I guess we could have saved ourselves some pain by just not betting into them. I don't mind the size. The size I think is fine. We could have just held our tongue, so to speak. Yeah, well, doesn't mind a bet either. B50, B75 is fine. All right. I think we just have to let this hand be what it is and know that solvers love to call gut shots, even to big sizing, and it's just the way it is. These are the spots where money slowly gets sucked out of my account and it just blows. But I guess if we're trying to play a somewhat balanced, optimal game, we're really trying hard not to do too much exploiting unless we have good data to tell us it's worth exploiting, i.e. huge VPIPs, bad raising, super ridiculous 3-bet stats, something like that. And this guy, we have nothing on him. So Zonk 0 gets some more money from us when they shove, overshove. Overshove. What the heck would you overshove? That calls the preflop raise. 3s and 4s, basically. Set of 9s, maybe. I don't know. Is this a bluff? I just can't see ever, especially with a king, even though that king is better for our range, they just bang into it. And with no stat backup, I don't see why we would ever call here. I guess if they smash it and it was a club king, then I suppose we have to close our eyes and call and, you know, just never hit our flushes. To be a sad sack. But anyway, the machine tells us to fold too, so we folded. I'm not sure this is such a good defend. Queen 3. I think if anything, use it as a raise. I don't see why we call here. I think we should probably try. This is one of those spot Birch was talking about where we're leaking a little bit of money by being a little too wide. I'll bet you the solver probably says it's a good call, but I'm gonna tell myself that it isn't. So check, and then we really don't have anything on this board, but they have weakened themselves to a certain extent by checking, and this hand's never going to win. My range is strengthened, so this is a spot where I thought I could put a little bit of money in and possibly get a bunch of folds from Ace Jack, Ace X, better Queen X, 3s, 4s, stuff like that, like whatever they're opening. Yeah, we don't have any draws whatsoever, and we don't. Here we'll talk a little bit about blockers. We're not blocking any of the continues, but we didn't actually bet, so there's no. The range is just purely what it was pre-flop. No, that's not right. They have shed their King X that would have bet. They have shed for sure aces. They've shed potentially Ace X, spade, heart, and diamonds. They should be betting, pure betting this particular flop. Like this is, I think, 100% bet in the real world. So by seeing a 10 come up, I thought our range was strengthened, but we are not nut advantaged, so I don't think we polar. Our range has no kings, has no 10s, has a few 8s, has no aces. Our range does have 10-8 and king 8. So I guess in that way, maybe we are a little bit more nut advantaged. So potentially could size up a little bit bigger. We get a call. And then we continue to brick. I see this as a brick card. And their call strengthened their range so much that I think now, even though this particular hand cannot win, polarizing it made no sense, I don't think, since we didn't polarize the turn. We should polarize with 2 pairs and the random sets that we might have called the flop with, or we called the pre-flop with. And we already find them with some crappy kings and jacks and queens and 10s and 9s and possibly some 7s. But well, there you go. So I talked myself out of the bet, but it actually won. But is that a good? That's not necessarily the indication of a good decision. Let's go check the machine once again. Lots of machine checking. What was it? Queen 3? Yeah, it's this one. Yeah, this would be flagged as one of our not so good hands. So it didn't agree with us that we deserved to put a bet in. So none of that played out. So it wasn't necessarily the river decision that was bad. It was more the turn decision. It didn't agree that we had rage advantage at that point. The hands that do put a bet in on that turn, when checked 2, are thinking, few and far between, 85% checks. So there is no advantage here. The hijack continues to maintain their advantage, actually. So that was our mistake. We did not have a better range at that point. And we don't have any real nut advantage either. In fact, they have more nut, slightly more nut advantage, assuming they're managing their ace kings and stuff like that. And they're showing up here on the turn. So that's a blunder. Turn blunder. Let's make a note. Bad hand. Turn blunder. Assuming reading. Let's call it reading. Reading that this was advantage range to us. Hijack maintains through check. So when we do bet, is that the size we're using? Yeah, it's sort of spread around. So if we have bet there and they call and then we hit the river, now we do actually have the range advantage and we do have the nut advantage as well. Slightly, barely, sort of in this top. Not the top, but in our, say, 90 plus, 85 through 90. So there a polar bet is acceptable. So I would imagine, yeah, we see a bunch of polar betting. And why is there a call? Why is there a call when no bet is to us? Are we not in the right node? What is going on here? There, yes, thank you. So half the time we're checking and half the time we're big betting. So we got there with the wrong combo, or we got there with the wrong portion of our range, essentially. Like the very, very few bets that are putting a bet in here are like top pairs and these things that we're checking and want to get a bit of protection and some value in. Some 2 pairs, a couple of sets, like just bits and pieces that assumed we were going to get a bet from them that aren't polarizing. So I think we had the right idea. We just did it with the wrong combo. Ace 3 of hearts. Is that what we have? No, we have ace 3 of clubs. So yeah, ace 3 of clubs is just all bad news. It's negative. But of course, a heart flush draw, we can see some betting going on there. So yeah, so bad call with the clubs, not a bad idea with the hearts, and but you know what? We got to win, so there's going to be some protection or some good stuff there. River, good. Having bet, our range now does have nut advantage, and the big bet is good with poles. Again, wrong part of range. Pure trash. I mean, basically the machine won't have this combo in in the river range because we were only betting the queen 3 of hearts. So 5-7, another defend, but EP defend, kind of a loose, probably edgy, and are just garbage to fold out. 10-9 is worth a re-raise to a cutoff open, and this limpy, oh no, that's the big blind, and so we get called. This is what I'm talking about. We just keep missing flops. Like we just don't get our color, and we, we're in the middle and it comes up low cards, or we're at high in the range and it comes up middle cards, or we're in the low end and it comes up high cards, whatever. It's just a constant missing of things. So having to try and salvage a session using our bluffing brain, which I guess maybe in terms of exercises is probably not a bad result for the day. So we raised, but then decided this is far too good of a hand for the caller and checked to them. And then I think we're going to put in a bet here. It's B33, is that what that is? But a little bit more, it looks like, oddly. Again, this is, I think, a little too hand-centric. 5 isn't necessarily good for us unless we have pairs. So their 2 pairs disappear. But what 2 pairs would they have? 7-3? No. The only 2 pair they could have is 7-5, and they've just made a house. So the fact that the board paired the turn, I think, is not a positive outcome. The only hands that we have that we would bet from the small blind, raise from the small blind, would be ace-5, or maybe 5s. So we bet quad 5s. King-5 I'm not raising from the small blind. 5-4 I'm not raising from the small blind. So I think this was another misjudge, and there's no value. Just because we have 10-9 of spades, that doesn't mean we need to be putting money in, and we're essentially overbluffing. This is an overbluff spot, even though we get a fold again. I'm going to almost guarantee the Mr. Machine is not going to be proud of this one. 10-9. And what was that one? These ones. Oh. 10-9, we do raise, we check, and then yeah, there's no turn bet there. It's all checking. So, an inaccuracy, a 0.3% of the time. So it's not going to kill us. There's no EV loss according to the machine. And what is the EV of that bet? 137 versus a check of 176. I mean, there is quite a bit of EV loss. So I think there's got to be mistakes here in this column. Is not adding up properly, because we should see that decision give a minus 40 or so 0.4 EV loss. So something's gone wrong, which is not helpful if it adds up to 16 big blinds lost in the session, but yet you can't find out where those were. But that's one of them. If I'm reading it correctly, I could be reading it wrong. So this was also a bad hand. Overbluffing the turn. Again, wrong combo. Hand incentive too high. Not a good card for our range MO. Ace, queen off, call. Check it. We get an ace and we get a couple of folds. Pretty boring hand, I think. And the ace is good for us, but multi-way, my sizing out of position is almost always small if I'm betting at all. I could easily have checked there and do some bluff catching, particularly as these are both 50 V-pips, but only 2 hands on them, so who knows. King 4 off is just a stupid ass defend because somebody checked it or just limped. So we get a pair and a fold, which Honestly, I could probably and should probably call, but it's almost a pot size bet, and they could have all kinds of overs, and we have no spades, and what's the point? 30 VPIP, PR2. Oh yeah, because they play this limpy game. So yeah, I don't know. Do we call that? I don't love a call. I just don't see what we gain. Straightens, we're losing there. Any higher card, we could be losing to. Another bet on the turn, we could fold. They could maybe slow down, possibly. The only thing we could do maybe with this combo is use it to raise, but it's so out of our range that I'm not sure what we would do. I'm not sure. I guess we block a set of fours, essentially. That's all we got. I'd say if this was a spade king, we could look at raising. I don't think I see any value in raising a polar bet right now. If anything, we would probably just continue, and we'd rather continue with a spade draw. Sixes defend, hoping to hit a set. Didn't hit a single set this session. So good flop for our range, I think. They check and weaken their range. King comes, and that strengthens their range in my mind. So when they bet, we just let it go. King queen off is going to raise, but it was a horrible raise size. Granted, it was a limp button, but I still should be seeing 5 or 6, not 3. It's too easy to call there, which they do. We get a gut shot. I think I put a bet in because they're so limpy. So anything, if they don't have an ace, they're going to fold, but they call. And then the 7 comes. Not, I don't know if that's a good or bad hand, or good or bad card. I'm going to say in game I said no, so I let it go. And the number of aces they have are just so high, and we have tons of aces that if we had sized properly, we have tons of aces in our range that we could use there too. So if this was queen 10, raise or bet, lead, put pressure on that ace, polar bet, especially queen 10 spades. Is that an especially? No. Oh no. King. So the nut would be a king club, and we would want to, with queen 10, we'd want to pressure those king clubs. So having a club in our hand is not a good thing here, because they are less likely to have a flush draw and more likely to have just a pair of aces. So I think when we check and they bet half pot, we just let it go, because they're probably betting an ace. Nines, 7x, a little bit better sizing for the min open. They call. We have an overpair. Not a great board for us, but not a terrible one. So polarizing bet, B50, sort of polarizing, and they fold. Ace jack is a raise, and then we get re-raised. This hand I didn't love. See, that's the sizing I've got to be doing a little bit more, right? 14 big blinds. That hurts to call that. That's 11 more big blinds. But we're suited and in position. So, and it's something we have to defend sometimes. We can't overfold these spots, even with these really big sizes. A 7 VPIP, so their range is super ass tight. So much of the time we're going to run up against ace king and ace queen, or aces. But if we can hit a flop, if we can hit a good flop with this couple of spades, we could potentially get ourselves in a really nice pot. So and we're also somewhat deep, right? 123 big blinds versus 243. So we're covered, and that would be a nice little double up if we can make it work. And so ace king's beating us, aces kings are beating us, backdoor flush, and top pair, there's no real world where we're not calling a 1/3 bet. We have to continue. I don't see any world where we're raising though. So it's just a pure call here in my mind. Then we get the flush draw, the royal flush draw, in fact. This is a great card for, well, ace queen now is ahead of us, as is ace king, as is queens, as is kings, as is aces. They could easily bet the flop with queens. We're very they are supremely nutted compared to our range, and I think their range is probably stronger at this point. Jack 10 is the nuts, and that is likely a little bit more concentrated in our range. A VPIP 7 probably isn't raising that very much. So other than that one hand, where are we good here? We're good with these flush draws. We're good with ace X. We're losing to king queen. We're only losing to or beating king jack and queen jack. And those could bet the flop. And I doubt 9s, 8s, 7s are betting the flop. So if we face a bet here, especially if it's a polar bet, we've got to see where we're getting to. If they bet, say, 40 into 46, that makes it 86. So we put 40 back in, and now we're SPR 1. I don't know. I don't think there's a world where we would shove. The only value to a shove, what would be the value to a shove? Folding out 2 pair by repping Jack 10, having flush come in on the river. Yeah. So I don't think we overshove a bet if it's checked to us. We still beat a lot of hands. We beat king 10, we beat queen 10, we beat king jack, we beat queen jack. So there's a lot of hands that we are still ahead of, especially with the flush draw, that I think we're just too strong to be using it as a bluff. Like, I think our bluffs probably want to come from defended 9/10s and ace raggy kind of flush draws. All these hearts are here too, so like they could be on a flush draw, like king queen, king 10 of hearts maybe. I don't know, I'm getting a little lost in all of the different permutations here, but I think we have to be careful because of the depth and the pot size. And when they're checking to us, I think we want to just go to the river and see, because I think we have showdown value already against some hands, and we're losing to a bunch of others, and we really want to hit a flush on the river that then they can either bluff or bet, and we can raise. We could shove there. Obviously, we will shove there, assuming it's not a 4 of spades. And yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if it's better to have put a bet in there. But the other flush comes, and they do a small bet. Small. We're getting great price. Now I wonder if we should shove. Now I wonder if maybe we should shove this hand. Does it make sense to shove a pair of aces that could be good against some hands, but what of those hands have bet the river? What is King 10 betting the river? Not likely. Is King Jack betting the river? Unlikely. Queen Jack, Queen 10, well, Queen 10's a straight. No, it doesn't. Yeah, so Queen, like a pair of queens. I don't think so. I don't think so. The only thing that I think are betting this river is an induced made flush, an inducing bet to get us to put a move in on a made flush, like a king queen of hearts, or a king jack or a king 10 of hearts, and just a lot of thin value from ace queen, ace king, king queen, and we're going to pay that off if we just call. And what would be the better bluffs? Jack 9, I don't think we defend. 10-9, possibly of spades. I can't think of any better bluffs than a pair of aces. A busted flush draw ace spade to get two pairs to fold. So I'm going to say maybe we should have shoved that river instead of calling it. King 4. Not even in my calculations, but what do you know? Anyway, that two pair is done. And then odd that of a 7 VPIP, a King 4 of diamonds is the one they 3-bet. Crazy. That is crazy. So I think I'm going to flag this as I'm going to build a like missed river bluffing, but we'll make note. I think we could have shoved river to rep flush even without blocking them having, and gotten two pair such as this weird hand to fold. What other bluffs do we have? So let's take a look. That's definitely one we want to check out. Ace Jack. Ace Jack. That one. Yeah. Oh, no bluffs from that combo. What bluffs are they using? Bunch of pocket pairs. All those pocket pairs. Those are the only cards that they're using those are the cards they're using as bluffs. We defend. We call. I don't even see myself calling with 5s or 7s on that flop. I don't see that. It doesn't make sense to me that we would even be there with those. We'd never call those hands. We are not using those aces. King 10 of, yeah, we're not using that. Probably bluffed earlier. What do we bet with on the turn? Just a lot of these hands still. All these pocket pairs are what are being used to bluff with. Thin value too. Interesting. I don't see that as having much value. Two pairs. Yeah. Interesting. That's an interesting hand. That probably is a hand worth flagging for the group. Review. Okay. Ace Queen open, defended, not our flop, bet, fold. Pretty straightforward. If we had any clubs, we'd continue one bet, one street. Raise it, called, out of position. No, we're in position. Good board for us, just shitty for our combo. So I decided to check because they're going to have lots of jacks and tens and kings that they'll defend with. And then we hit a straight, and they bet, and we call it. A bit of a slow play versus all kinds of 2 pairs and such. They go 30, we raise, and then we chop, right? Yep. Defending with the 10-9. Earlier we raised. Most of the time we should raise. Just not quite good enough hand to be looking at heads up against supposed wide button opens. I think at this point I was feeling a little beaten up, so I ended up just calling. We flop middle pair with a flush draw, backdoor flush draw. Flush comes in, not a good card for us. Oh wait, sorry, I'm blowing through things here. 7 flush, c-bet, call, strengthens our hand. I think this particular combo isn't worth using, but in theory, I think we actually have a slightly stronger range now, and we could lead out or check raise with, say, ace X diamonds, king X diamonds. But we don't want to use this hand, I don't think, because it's too strong, even though they do a really piddly little bet. So we call and check it, and they have a queen. No, they have a 10, but a better 10 than ours. So, yeah, if we had raised, maybe we would get a fold there. Probably. Let's just look at that. I might say this would be the last hand. 10-9. And that would be this one. Call, call, call. Yeah, just all calls. A little bit of a lead, no raises. So, played like a machine. Okay, how many more hands do we have? 9, 10. Still a lot of hands. 9, 10, 9, 10. Split pot, yeah, tons of hands. So I'm going to say we're not going to look at the rest of those. It's just too many to look at on the stream. So there you go. I don't know what takeaway I have from this session. I don't feel like there was any glaringly bad hands. There was that one hand where we just chose the wrong combo to bluff, and we actually won the hand. So yeah, I'm not totally sure I'm seeing where I'm losing value, but anyone who potentially watches this and thinks that I have done a bad analysis on any of these hands, or that I'm sounding confused, please let me know, and I will definitely appreciate any feedback anybody wants to give. Thanks so much.